The S&P 500 would return about 500,000, apartments about 1.7, 1.8 million, but self-storage would return about $4 to $4.1 million. So most people say, well, Fernando, if the returns are that high, that must mean the risk is also high as well. And that isn't the case.
Fernando, what's the number one secret to investing in self-storage?
Yeah, what people don't realize about self-storage is that it has asymmetric risk-return profiles. So if you look at the National Association of Real Estate Investment Trusts, they did a study that started in 1994 to present, and they saw that over that period of time across different real estate assets, or different asset classes, you had things like the S&P 500 returning between 7 to 8%. Multifamily doing a little bit better at about 13% average annual return. And then self-storage all the way at the top with 17.4% return. Now that 4% between multifamily and self-storage may not seem like a lot, but you got to realize that compound interest is at play. So if you had $100,000 during that study period, the S&P 500 would return about 500,000, apartments about 1.7, 1.8 million, but self-storage would return about $4 to $4.1 million. So most people say, well, Fernando, if the returns are that high, that must mean the risk is also high as well. And that isn't the case. So, if you look at 2007 to 2009, the S&P dropped 22%. Multifamily dropped about 7%, but self-storage only dropped about 3.5%. And then if you go to something a little bit more fresh in our minds during the pandemic, according to TREP, which is a commercial mortgage-backed research facility firm, they found that of the 1,700 CMBS loans that were made to self-storage investors, in the first 3 quarters of the pandemic, only 3 were more than 3 days delinquent. That's a 0.17% delinquency rate. During that same time, multifamily was defaulting at a rate of 1,800% higher, 18 times the default rate of self-storage.
Wow. So those are some great stats. Let me see if I can capture that. So it's the asymmetric return / risk pendulum, if you will. And self-storage is 17% during this study period, which is about 4% higher than multifamily, which multifamily is about 13, which is about maybe double or so or close to that from the stock market. And on top of that, though, the vacancy or lack of massive people just taking all their stuff and actually just organizing it or whatever, however else they would do stuff with self-storage, right? They actually didn't get out. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, that's fair. And, one of the easiest reasons why I decided to switch from habitation-based real estate, where someone lives in my asset, to non-habitation-based real estate like self-storage is the difference in the guiding laws, right? So you move from landlord-tenant law or eviction law to lien or property law. So, when I was investing in multifamily, especially in Chicago, where the laws are pretty lenient towards the tenants, there was times where we did everything right and it still took us 8 months to get a tenant out of our unit. And then it'd cause a bunch of damage and we couldn't get that money back. Whereas with self-storage, when someone places their possessions into my facility, I automatically get a lien against those possessions. So within 5 days of non-payment, I can overlock their unit and tell them, hey, it's overlocked. If you don't pay within the next 45 days, we're going to auction off your materials. And if they still don't pay, we send them to auction. And within 45 to 60 days, I have a new paying tenant in that unit. I don't have to deal with eviction courts. It's very easy. It's clean. It's fast.